All right, so there's a hot debate going on in the medical space among doctors and surgeons right now. And I want to talk about it in a new format where we're going to spend 5 minutes going over really important issues for both healthcare workers, patients, and people who work in healthcare. So there was an article in the Wall Street Journal called "Young Doctors Want Work-Life Balance. Older Doctors Say That's Not the Job." So let's break down the article. Let's talk about the problems that both sides are dealing with kind of in the community at large, and then what we potentially can take away as healthcare beneficiaries or the people that are specifically involved in healthcare outcomes. So specifically, the points in the article are that there's a big generational divide or a generational perspective, and that older physicians often view medicine as a calling that really necessitates personal sacrifices and long hours, whereas the younger doctors are prioritizing this work-life balance mentality, challenging traditional expectations of the profession. So younger doctors are really citing burnout and well-being, right? Younger physicians really say that health concerns should prioritize balanced lifestyles. Really reduced hours can lead to better patient outcomes, more rested surgeons, better patient care, and certainly a better, more cognizant and coherent physician. Healthcare systems are also challenging the same idea, saying that as we shift more towards corporate healthcare models, that physicians are working as more employees, so they don't have an ownership mentality in patient care, and that's also causing this generational divide, whereas older physicians were more independent in private practice. There's been a huge decline in private practice adherence, and that's something that's a huge problem today. Now, after this article was published, there was this big online response, and there was a lot of support for the younger physicians saying that there was improved work-life balance would be essential to reduce burnout and to enhance kind of the mental health among these providers. A lot of advocates really argue that errors would go down, patient care standards would go up, but there was a lot of criticism for the younger generation as well, and some older physicians and patients believe that medicine requires sacrifice and that focusing on work-life balance could compromise patient care. There's been a large argument that residents are the physicians who are after medical school training for some kind of specialty, maybe even surgical or medicine, and the more that they spend outside of work and less time in work doesn't make them as equipped, especially in the surgical specialties. Critics often reference personal experiences of long working hours as something that built resilience and expertise, and they deepen their commitment to the profession. But so if you prioritize balance, it's possible that there'll be gaps in coverage, especially in rural and underserved areas. But there was one thing that's clear on the online community and the online response is that there are systemic challenges, and we've talked about this a lot right here. And it's this overburdensome bureaucratic nightmare that exists among private healthcare insurance companies, right? This is something the older generation didn't have to deal with as much as is today. Now, all of us are dealing with it. Younger physicians are dealing with it more now than physicians when they first came out 20, 30 years ago. So that causes a lot more stress, a lot more work-life burden that's not necessarily patient care. And obviously, corporatization of medicine has made a huge difference too. A lot of corporate healthcare companies are subsidizing physician pay outside of the normal, getting them inculcated into like a system and requiring them to work specific shifts and reducing autonomy. And we've talked about in here, if you have reduced autonomy, you have a reduced likelihood for compliance and even wanting to work. So there's been a lot of suggestions online about how we can fix this, mentorship programs, part-time schedules. I think ultimately, in my opinion, the primary difference between these two camps is what we call the outcomes that they're both after. It's been very difficult among the older generation to have the same priorities as the younger generation, whereas the older physicians are prioritizing specifically the autonomy they once had, or even the monetary value they once had in medicine, or even having the less burdens that they once knew. But younger physicians are prioritizing harmony because of the control and autonomy that the older physicians had. This is something that's unknown to younger physicians. And so instead of having the same priorities that they don't even realize because it's, first of all, not taught in schools, they're going after balance because autonomy, reimbursement, other means that older physicians were targeting from a priority perspective are just not available anymore. So how do we fix it? Well, we get the bureaucracy, we get the corporate healthcare systems out of the picture, and then what happens in the younger generation, right? Autonomy comes back, the bureaucracy goes down, potentially higher reimbursement, and you'll see the same type of adherence, the same type of ownership, the same type of resilience because you have the same outcomes that are available for both generations. It's not a generational problem, it's a bureaucratic problem. And if we want to fix it, we can't just look at a generation and say, you're the problem, or point fingers at the other generation, because that's what insurance companies want us to do, that's what corporate America wants us to do, and we have to work together. Thanks for checking this out.